a lot of people don't end up printing their pictures. They leave it on a digital medium. And sometimes your iPhone and things like that might work out okay for that. But Durgy, when it comes to things like printing your image, that phone is not going to be able to do it for you. That iPhone's not going to be able to do it for you. You're not going to be able to blow up a massive print. You're going to lose the quality.
What are the questions you should be asking a photographer before you hire them for your big wedding day? Today we're sitting down with Vinay, who is an expert at wedding photography from the Midnight Media, and we're going to be talking about his creative side, his dark side when it comes to wedding photography, and also for tips and tricks for couples about to get married and what they should be really looking for in a wedding photographer. Hello everyone, my name is Durgy Spade and I am a wedding MC and magician, and in this series, Wedding Checklist Now, we look at tips, tricks, and even wedding checklists to help you plan the big day of your dreams and also save you time and money along the way. So let's get to Vinay right after this. Vinay, what is up, my friend? Welcome to the show and thank you so much for being here. Now, before we even get started, there's going to be a lot of people watching and listening that maybe are not familiar with your work. Can you give us like a 30-second introduction on who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Durgy, for having me, man. It's always a pleasure seeing you. I love talking to you, man. Every time I talk to you, it's just, I don't know, we go off on a whole bunch of different tangents, but great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Like Durgy said, guys, my name is Vinay. I'm the photographer at the Midnight Media, and I've been a wedding photographer now for about, I would say 15 to 16 years, going into like maybe my 16th year now, I'd say. Before that, I was a filmmaker, and then I used to do some music stuff as well, music producing and composing, and now I basically run a wedding and portrait studio here out of Toronto. Just looking forward to shooting some more weddings and building up another portfolio. That's all.
Amazing. And so specifically with weddings now, is it just photography you do, or is there like other things you're involved when it comes to weddings?
Yeah, so I mean, mainly I would say that I am heavily focused on the photography side of things. However, I am looking into branching off into the videography things as well. Like I said, I do come from a video background, and that's something that I'm trying to incorporate now into my photography packages and services as well. A lot of people will ask me like, hey, do you offer video as well? And I'm always like, yo, I can outsource it to someone that I trust or someone that I've worked really closely with in the past. But now I think it's starting to get to the point where I enjoy doing it a lot for some of my personal projects, and I think that I'd kind of like to add it in for some of my professional stuff as well, just to see how that goes. But yeah.
That's amazing. And I'm secretly asking this, Vinay, because I know you're not, I feel like you're being a little humble and not exposing all of your other talents, because I know you're so talented in so many different ways. What about like music? Are you still involved with music? Because secretly I know you've done some incredible music projects.
Right.
Can you share something about that?
Yeah, so I mean, if we're going back to specifically the wedding industry, before I even got into the photography industry, I used to be a DJ. I used to be a wedding DJ, and I used to have a music studio where, I used to compose music for film. Actually, I was a background composer, music composer for film and short films and things like that. And how I sort of transitioned over was when I saw all these guys, with the cameras and actually creating the story visually. I was like, you know what, that actually looks like a lot more fun, sometimes at least. And so I kind of wanted to get my feet wet with that and try that, and that's kind of how I transitioned over. But I'm still doing some music stuff now. I am working on some short films outside of the wedding industry where I'm composing the music. I'm looking at recording another album with myself and my brother as well. We're just going to be producing some sort of a world fusion jam sort of thing, and that should be released by the end of the year as well. So just trying to keep myself busy with everything that's going on right now.
So the projects are still going, you're still involved somewhat in the music scene, it sounds like, which is great. And again, I wanted to get that out there because I know you're talented in so many different ways. And like you said, right, like you transitioned maybe a little bit from film and more into photo, which is your focus now. And I know you've been doing this for such a long time. I mean, I noticed, you started a film and photography club back at Seneca, is that right? And I imagine...
Yeah.
And I imagine even before that, you've been doing, you've always been involved. So take me back in time a little bit. How did you get started in this, right? How did you get into photography or video or music, maybe even before Seneca?
Yeah, so I mean, I think at this point, Durgy, it's really an understatement to say that I've dedicated my life to the arts. I went to school for audio engineering and music education, and once that was done, I went back to school for film and photography as well. And when I was doing my music and my audio engineering, that's where I was kind of just really hell-bent on making music for film. I really just wanted to compose. I wanted to be a composer, and specifically for the horror genre. I love everything about horror movies, and the atmospheric and environmental sounds and the Foley, the sound effects that they come up with. I was like, yo, this is me. Like this has my name written all over it, and I wanted to do that for the longest time. Got myself into that, and then I started to realize that the people who are directing, editing, and cutting this film, I mean, that seems like a lot of fun. So I kind of wanted to learn how to do that, and I kind of started to dabble with trying to write a short film, and I had no idea what I was doing with that. But I was like, you know what, this is something that I really want to learn, and something I want to have of my own, like have a couple of short films of my own. So I went back to school for film and photography, and that's where I really started to go deep with all the photography stuff, the filmmaking stuff. We had one of my friends actually who asked me, hey, my sister's looking for a wedding photographer, and now that you're somewhat in the industry or trying to get your name out there, or going to school for it, you must know a lot of people. And I was like, to be honest with you, I don't actually know anybody in the wedding industry. So I asked him, I was like, why don't you just let me shoot it? And he's like, well, you don't have any experience. And I was like, I know, but you're my friend, you gotta hook me up with something, so give me a shot at it. And that's kind of how I transitioned into the wedding industry, and one thing just kind of snowballed from there. But I would say it was the music going into the film side of it, and then from the film side going into the photography side of it.
Thanks for sharing that, man. And it's so interesting you brought up somewhere in that explanation you had, even that you loved the horror genre and that you wanted to produce music and stuff specifically for that genre. And maybe in a little bit I do want to get into that with our focus, of course, being on weddings. But again, you're so versatile with all of everything that you do, because I have seen your work. Maybe we can tap into that shortly. But going back to weddings, let me ask you, because the entire world right now at the time of recording is going through this huge change, and we're slowly starting to get back into weddings, right? Post-pandemic.
Correct.
I mean, here where we are in Ontario, things are still not fully opened up. Micro weddings are happening. And so let me ask you, what do you think is, the biggest difference for brides and grooms going from a pre-pandemic world to a post-pandemic world? What's the biggest change, and maybe even more so specifically when it comes to photography? Is there anything couples listening that are going to be getting married soon should be keeping in mind?
That's a great question, man. I mean, I feel like there's so many things that have changed, both being in the industry and from a perspective of looking to book someone in the industry, right? One of the biggest changes, Durgy, is the amount of people, obviously, who are attending these weddings. Like you said yourself, micro weddings. I mean, a lot of the bigger weddings that I had planned out for this season, I'm sure have gotten canceled. A lot of the destination weddings that we were scheduled for have also gotten canceled as well. And now they've become these 10 to 15 people weddings, and most likely in a backyard or some remote location somewhere, or of that some sort. But I think the biggest change has definitely been the size of the weddings. And to be honest with you, Durgy, I don't really think that that's a bad thing. I think sometimes when we're shooting a wedding, oftentimes there's a lot of people there. For me personally, I've photographed a couple of weddings where I'm photographing the groom or the bride, and I've heard them say, like, we don't even know who we're taking pictures of, to be honest with you. And so it may not be a bad thing to have a micro wedding. It's a little bit more intimate. It's a little bit more, everybody there. And I think it might even be at a time where it's just a bit more meaningful. But as far as some of the other changes that I feel aside from the size is also, of course, the venues, right? Like, I mean, now the venues are also not necessarily looking to accommodate such a big number as well, for obvious reasons, like, health and safety and things like that. But there's just a lot of these changes that I'm hoping to see kind of side, just put on the back burner in the next little while. So let's see what happens.
So let's imagine I'm a groom and I call you up and I say, listen, like, I love your work. I've seen your work. I've been following it for a few years. I'm getting married. Do you have any advice for me? What is there like one tip that I should think about that's that maybe I wouldn't have to worry about pre-pandemic? Something that's going to be very specific for me as a groom. Now that I'm getting married, like you said, right? There's different rules and regulations. So what is the one thing maybe that I should keep in mind?
Another great question, Durgy. That's awesome, man. So a lot of the times, bro, what happens with like the grooms specifically, I mean, if I'm speaking with you and the grooms specifically, a lot of the times, guys, the grooms don't necessarily care about the photography aspect of things. They kind of just leave it to the bride, or their respective others, and they're just like, we're gonna let her figure it out and see what she says about it, and whatever she says, I'm okay with it. But some advice that I would like to give to grooms is that, guys, do take consideration as to who your photographer is, because as much as the bride is important for that day, the groom is just as important, and it's our job to make the both of them look good, right? So recently it's really cool because I've had these grooms come up to me and they've actually shown me a couple of pictures through like magazines or something, and they're like, we really like how this looks, we want to look like this, and even with their pose, their stance, their dress, all that kind of stuff. And it's nice to see grooms taking a little bit more or paying a little bit more attention to detail now. That's really I really like that. One of the things that I do want to advise to grooms as well, if the groom is planning the photography or the videography, I would really recommend them starting early on with their planning, because a lot of the times what happens is, I don't know if it's just a guy thing with us, man, but we tend to leave things off until like the last minute sometimes. And there's been a lot of incidents where guys have called me maybe just a month or so before their wedding or 2 months before their wedding, and especially right now with the pandemic going on. As much as things are starting to open up, we're still uncertain of what this could bring and what this is going to look like. So my advice to the grooms specifically would be to start a little bit early with your planning, and also come in with paying a little bit more attention to photography and what it is that you actually want to achieve as far as you looking good on that day.
I think that's super helpful, man. And look, I'm not a photographer, I don't know anything about photo or video, but what you said really hits home. I think that makes sense because, and tell me if you agree or disagree, but if I'm calling you a month before the wedding and saying like, hey, Vinay, I need photos done, there's a lot we need to chat about, right? Like maybe we want to get an engagement shoot done. Maybe we want to do photos before or after the wedding or something. And all of that takes time. And you might, I'm just remembering from my own wedding, and I know this, Vinay, because you were my photographer, right? At my wedding, you did the photos. So I remember like how much went into it. And like, we had to like find spots to shoot, maybe get permits, and what if the permit office is closed, or like it starts to rain on the day we have scheduled, and now we're and we all know that during that last month before you're getting married, like it can get crazy, right? Because there's a million things going on. So I think that's super helpful of just planning early, because then you can get a lot of these things done perhaps out of the way early, right? Is that what you're trying to get to pretty much?
Absolutely. I think that's really what it is. Just plan early, because just right now there's just so many things that are going on with again, we just can't be so sure of. But and then again, I want to really emphasize on the second part of that advice is that for grooms, like I said, they don't really care. They're always just like, oh yeah, we'll just kind of let her deal with it. But guys, I would recommend you guys to come prepared with almost like, not necessarily like a shot list, but some sort of inspiration. Be like, I really like how, whatever Brad Pitt looked in this magazine. It'd be really cool if I can get some of that look, or, you guys spend money on the outfits and all that. You guys want to look good at the end of the day. And during the engagement shoot, for example, Durgy mentioned that as well, guys. That's kind of the part through the wedding where we have the opportunity to be the most creative with you. Throughout the wedding, yes, we are capturing your wedding, and we're going to try to be artistic and creative as much as we can. But during the engagement shoot, we're not necessarily on a time limit where we need to go from one place to another. We can really fine tune the details of that and really make you guys look amazing. So really bring that attention to detail when it comes to your engagement shoot. Come with everything prepared, and just so we can also make you look even that much more better.
It's so funny that you said these things, Vinay, because as you're speaking, I'm actually making parallels to what I do a lot of the time. And as you know, I'm not only a wedding magician, but I'm a wedding MC, but I'm also a wedding magician. And in magic, we have this, there's this saying, or it's not even a saying, but it's just this concept of when you have certain rules to play within, it's a lot easier to be creative. So in other words, if somebody says to me, and I'll show you where this is going in a moment, because I saw a direct parallel with what you just said. But if somebody says to me, create a magic trick, well, that's really hard to do because I don't know what that means. Should I do it with a cup? Should I do it with a deck of cards? Should I do it with my hat? Should I do it with people? Should I make a card appear? What are we talking about, right? If somebody says create a magic. Now, if somebody comes to me and says, here's a rubber band, I want you to create a magic trick with this rubber band. Okay, great. You've just given me a canvas to paint on, right? And my canvas is this rubber band, and now I can get creative with it. I can make it appear, disappear, I can break it apart, put it back together, but I know these are my rules. Yeah. And I think what you've just said, Vinay, is when someone comes to you with inspiration of, the example you gave was, here's a picture of Brad Pitt. I like the way he looks in this magazine, in front of this car, and it's very, whatever the word is, it's very, chic, or it's very, I just love the coloring. Again, forgive me, I don't know the photography terms. But at least that gives you inspiration of, okay, this is the style. Of what this person likes. And maybe, and tell me again if you agree, that now it gives you a goal or a canvas, maybe for lack of better words, of where you're playing within versus, Vinay, take some pictures, make me look good. Right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, man. And something that I want to emphasize on that is like how you emphasize the word style, styling of that portrait or that picture. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Similarly, when someone comes up to you and says, this sort of a magic trick, you're not going to duplicate that magic trick to copy what that other artist has done. You're going to make it your own. And that's something that I think why that vision board or that inspiration is so important, so that when this dude comes over with this Brad Pitt picture, I'm not looking at the exact pose or dress code or location. I'm looking at, okay, cool, I see that you're going for a gentleman GQ type of vibe, and let's try to see if we can put that into play. It's not necessarily the exact same picture. So I think having that vision board or that inspiration guides you into the direction that you kind of want to go into. And at the end of the day, it's about making your clients happy, right? Like with photography and wedding photography, Durgy, I'm literally in the field where my job revolves around people making laugh and people, having people smile. And at the end of the day, when I'm shooting a groom and a bride, and I flip the camera around and I show them, I want the groom to also be like, wow, man, you killed that, and not necessarily just the bride, and that's important for me. So
thanks for sharing that, by the way. We talked about earlier about micro weddings, small weddings. So I'm gonna ask maybe a bit of a challenging question.
Sure.
What happens if, for argument's sake, like somebody is having a conversation internally within their own family?
Yeah.
And they say, look, we're getting married and our original wedding was planned for 200 people, but because of everything now, we're gonna have 30 people. It doesn't make sense for us to hire a professional photographer. What are your thoughts on that? Is there truth to that? Is there, is that completely wrong? Help me understand.
Okay. Yeah, that's another great question. And I think that I don't think I necessarily disagree with that either. I definitely think that there is some truth and some significance to what they're saying, and I think it obviously comes down to a cost perspective as well, where they're looking at something that was 300 people and maybe 20 plus hours, and now it's going to be some micro wedding in a backyard with a couple of hours, and I guess the going trend of having 15% of capacity at this point, and I could see people saying that. In fact, people have said that to me as well. But it's at the end of the day, you got to understand that there's a difference between things like having your cousin shoot this wedding wedding with an iPhone compared to hiring someone like a professional photographer. And the difference is, Durgy, with the wedding specifically, one of my biggest pet peeves as a photographer with weddings is that a lot of people don't end up printing their pictures. They leave it on a digital medium. They leave it on an iPad or a computer or whatever the case is. And sometimes your iPhone and things like that might work out okay for that. But Durgy, when it comes to things like printing your image, that phone is not going to be able to do it for you. That iPhone's not going to be able to do it for you. You're not going to be able to blow up a massive print. You're going to lose the quality. And with something like a pandemic wedding, despite of the fact that it's pandemic, it's still a wedding at the end of the day. That's something that you want to look back on and cherish and show your kids this and your grandkids this. And I think it's important to have those professional memories, those moments captured with that resolution, that detail, and that story, because your cousin or someone in the family, they might just be taking snaps, but a photographer is going to come here and tell a story. They're going to recreate this entire story throughout your wedding day, despite of it being pandemic or pre-pandemic. They're going to come over with a story that they're going to create for you specifically, and that's not something that you're going to be able to achieve by giving your friend a phone or getting your friend to take some snaps with his camera. They're not going to necessarily be able to recreate the story that a professional might be able to.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That hit home for me. It's so interesting because you're right. You know, when we go to weddings, if you go to a wedding and you're close to the bride or groom, what happens, right? A few days after the wedding, your phone will be flooded with pictures and images and videos of everybody around you who's taken, you know, pictures and video on their phone, and it's going to be sent to this WhatsApp group, and it's going to get flooded, and then you're just going to get this thing. But you're right, there's, you know, the style and, you know, the story just won't exist there. It's going to be random shots, right? And I think that's it, right? Like when you look back 6 months from now or 6 years from now, you know, when you're looking at it in a story format, it just makes so much of a difference. And I totally even forgot about the printing aspect of it, because you're right. What's the point of going through all of this if you're not physically going to print it out in a physical book? It just makes it that much more beautiful to look at, right? So no, that makes sense. And thanks for sharing that. Were you gonna add something there?
I'm just, you know, like, I'm just thinking about that because, like, I've had a couple of people in the last couple of weeks who brought that up as well, and you know, they're asking things like, even like, say for example, just being open and blunt with you, like discounted prices, right? Like, oh, we're not shooting 300 people anymore, so why is the photography still costing this much money? So it doesn't necessarily have to revolve around how many people are at your wedding, because for photography and videography, for example, the work doesn't change, right? The workflow doesn't change. We still need to put in those amount of hours. We still need to come back. We still need to edit. We still need to deliver. We still need to go through a consultation. There still might need to be an engagement shoot. We still need to be printing images and designing albums. So that work doesn't necessarily change. The workflow doesn't necessarily change for us. But the difference here, when someone's saying something like, why do you think I really need to hire a photographer? I think it really comes back to, hey, you're absolutely right, but when you go and get your friend to do this, you're not going to get that composition. You're not going to get the attention to detail. You're not going to get the experience of a professional photographer. You're not going to get that story to be told at the end of the day. You spend a lot of money on your wardrobe, your makeup, your hair, and despite of it being a micro wedding, there's still costs involved with your venue, your parents, your makeup, all this stuff, right? You want to be able to capture that at a level of detail that you look back on and be like, wow, even though it was a pandemic wedding, this looks fantastic. We killed it, you know?
Yeah. No, I get it, man. I mean, I totally see the value in that. So speaking of, questions, those type of questions that, couples have already been asking you, what is the question that every couple should be asking every photographer that they speak to?
Yeah, I think that's a really important one. And I think the first thing that I would really like to emphasize is on the style of the photography, right? I think it's really important that you ask your photographer, hey, what's your style? Because just going back to us, Durgy, and speaking about that horror element and like that darker style, my work necessarily doesn't always have this brighter, airy, pastel-y look on it. And so a lot of people will ask me, hey, what's your style of photography? Are you just gonna be doing this whole darker film noir, moodier look, or can you do some of the brighter stuff? So I think it's a very good question to ask your photographer. What's your style of photography, and to kind of figure out like what direction the couple wants to head in, and if you're right for them to book you with and whatnot. Of course, I want to emphasize another question as far as availability goes. Hey, are you available for these dates? Because pandemic has changed so many things, and now I'm honestly getting to the point where people are calling me and they're like, hey man, the wedding is on a Tuesday night, but the reception's on a Thursday night. So I think, again, going back to what I was saying before about starting early and planning ahead of time, and then really asking your photographer with constant communication if you are actually available for these dates and having that locked down. And then one of the most important things, Durgy, right now is, I would say, ask your photographer about what they think about returning the deposits in case of something like a COVID or pandemic wedding or something like that. What are your rules and commitments to returning a deposit? I know a lot of photographers personally will say that the deposits are okay to be transferred to another date. But if it's I think that's kind of what I've been hearing, to be honest with you, that you can transfer deposits to another date. I know a couple of people who have actually given back deposits as well if they're not available for the new chosen date or something like that. But again, I think it's very important to ask, hey, there is this thing going around right now called the pandemic, and what are your obligations or commitments of returning a deposit back?
You know what? I feel like you read my mind, because my next question, I feel like you just answered it for me by talking about those things to be careful of. Because my next question I was going to ask you is, what should couples be careful about when booking photo or video? And you literally just talked about, just making sure at this point in time with pandemic going on, being able to get your, figuring out what the I guess refund type policies or rescheduling policies are. Anything else that they should be careful of?
100%. So we talked briefly earlier about permits as well, right? And with sometimes for example, we wanted to shoot in a specific location. Let's just say Casa Loma in Toronto. I know for a little while they weren't actually issuing out the permit. So if that's something that you really wanted to, you saw your engagement shoot happening there, and they're not giving out the permits or something like that, that's something that you need to consider. And now just be careful with as well, that some of the locations that you might have had intended for may not be available to you anymore. So again, start early, do your research, and kind of plan ahead of time. And of course, with pandemic and with everything, sort of just, again, it's just still uncertain. I know a lot of things are starting to open up in Ontario now, but there's still a lot of uncertainty when it comes to things like, hey, I know you're a little bit, your schedule's a little bit confused because of pandemic. What's our deadline? When can we receive our pictures from you as well? Is it going to be longer than expected, or and I think that constant communication is important there as well. And then some of the other things to worry about is locate. I would say venue. I would say just stay on top of your venues, because I've been hearing a lot of horror stories about, hey, we booked a date with this venue and we can't hear back from them, or we don't know where they are, and I would say that's something that you definitely need to worry about. So,
man, so many things to worry about with a
pandemic.
I know. No, thanks for your thoughts, man. Let me shift back to you and your work a little bit. So, at the beginning of our call, we talked about the Midnight Media. I've also seen, and just to be clear, the Midnight Media is the name of your company. Correct. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what is the Creative Owl? Help me understand.
Okay, yeah. So the Creative Owl is a title that I've basically come up with for myself. The owl comes from the fact that I never go to sleep. I mean, if I do go to sleep, I'm gonna go to sleep very late. But it's basically just the idea that I work late at night. I find the best creativity comes out of me when I'm working late at night, and when I'm just alone and in the space and no one's bothering me. And so and I've always had this sort of habit from when I was a kid as well, that I just never went to sleep. I stayed up at night to finish all my work, and that's where all of my creativity came out from. So the Creative Owl, that's where that kind of started. The Midnight Media, the name and all that, I realized that I like that darker element in my work. I like how all that looks, and I wanted to see if I can incorporate that into taking it from my film side and bring it into my photo side. So I would light my photos exactly like how I would light my films, and really get this like darker film noir type of look.
Got it. Thanks for sharing. So let me ask you, Mr. Creative Owl. First of all, I like the story of how, where how these names were kind of created, and you like to create at night, and I actually saw that, and I think in one of your posts or your website earlier.
Yeah.
But how has, or not how, but can you share with us maybe like one of the craziest stories that comes to mind while you were at a wedding? Something like, I can't believe that happened, or Durgy, here, you and me, we sit down for a beer or something, and there's this one story you absolutely have to tell me about. Anything like that comes to mind?
Yeah, there's definitely one for sure. I'm not gonna say any names, of course, because it's a small world, and but the craziest thing, Durgy, I was shooting at a wedding. This is, I would say, 4 years ago, and it was a wedding here in Toronto. And there's the decor guy. He was walking around with a box of flowers in his hands, right? And he's kind of going around, and he was placing flowers on some of the tables, and just setting up his decor and whatnot. And the staff at the event venue, they started to vacuum the carpet, right? And he's holding this big box in front of him. He didn't see the wire in front of him, and he trips. And he tries to brace his fall, but the only thing that he can grab onto at that time was the cake table. And this cake had a 12 tier cake, and so
Don't tell me.
yeah, he grabs onto the cake table to brace his fall, and they both go over the cake, the table, and himself, plus all of his flowers and stuff. But the most craziest part, Durgy, is that the bride comes out. She sees this, she freaks out, and she throws a chair at him, locks herself in the bridal suite, and says, "I'm not coming out until I see a 12-tier cake on the table."
Oh my God.
So this reception was delayed several hours. They couldn't get the 12-tier cake. The best they could come up with was like a 4 or 5-tier cake. Probably the craziest thing I've ever experienced in my life. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Where did they get a new 5-tier cake from in the middle of the night? Middle of the evening?
Yeah, luckily the bakery was just pretty close to the venue from what I remember, and they came up with this. It was a completely different design from what was originally figured out, right?
Yeah, it was the cake for the next day's wedding.
That's probably what it was. Yeah. And so that's probably the craziest that I've actually experienced. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm stressed out thinking about this.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy, man. But
tell me you got some of it on camera.
we do. We 100% do. Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Maybe next time we have you on, maybe you can share an image or something. We'll crop the people out. And
we'll blur their faces or something like that. But it was during the setting up of the reception, right? Like before all the guests and cocktail and all that stuff started. And I saw the cake table go up, and me and my second shooter, we looked at each other. We're like, "Oh my God, what do we do? What do we do?" It was just crazy, dude.
That is insane, man. That is insane. Okay. Clearly you've got like a ton of different stories, experiences. I want to share with you on your screen right now a couple of images. I'm going to show you some images, and I want you to maybe describe these images in one word if you're able to. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay, so right now I'm on your website. You can see here, and clearly, beautiful work. And it's funny because you say like you've got like a little bit of a darker kind of style, and that even shows like here. I mean, they're still beautiful pictures, clearly, but your style it definitely shines through. So I went to your Instagram and I picked up a couple of images. And let's start with this one here. What are your thoughts on this? If you could describe it in one word.
Yeah, just chemistry. I would say chemistry with these guys. That's it.
Chemistry.
Yeah, just chemistry. That's it. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
What about this? And by the way, these are all images taken by you, right? And we can find you here at the Midnight Media on your Instagram, right?
Yeah, yeah. I actually totally forgot about this picture, Durgy. This is going back quite a few.
2016, based on your posting here.
Yeah. This is going back a few years ago.
5 years.
Yeah. If I have to describe this in one word, I would just say India.
India? Was this taken in
Yeah.
India?
No, but that's exactly what we were trying to go for with this. We were trying to go for a field, a farm in India kind of thing, and that's it. Yeah.
Got it. I like it. What about this?
Yep, this is one of my most recent ones as well. With this, I would probably, if I could describe it in one word, I would just say mysterious. I would say very
Mysterious?
mysterious. Yeah, she has this look with the jewelry and everything, and kind of like a nomad's vibe. I would say mysterious with this.
Got it. And for those that are kind of following along, this isn't a wedding photo, right? This was,
No.
help me understand, what was this?
This honestly, this is a good friend of mine, Harinya, and I love working with her. She always brings she likes to push the envelope with me as far as creatively challenging me and as far as coming up with something new, and I love working with her for that reason. This was literally a portrait shoot that we had put together. We were talking about doing something in front of the water and doing something with the sun, and this had come about, and we basically put this together. This has nothing to do with a wedding, or this was just for us, something that we did just to just to experiment with the ideas that we had come up with. I'm glad it worked out though. I think she just absolutely killed it in this picture. She looks amazing in this. So
Awesome. Thanks. Switching gears a bit. What about this?
funny story, dude. I was actually trying to enter as a role for a film, and they wanted me to just basically look like this rough, tough guy, and someone who rides a bike and whatnot, and just has a story to tell. So I was kind of going for like a real like badass, rough type of guy for this film that I was working on. That's all.
Nice. And you took this picture. It is self-portrait?
Yeah, it's a self-portrait, correct? Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. And then last one.
yeah. I think it's very important for what's going on right now. This is something that we put together called a pandemic man, and I think if I could describe this, I'm just gonna say that this too shall pass. That's all it is, and that's just he's getting stressed out with all the stuff that's going on with the masks and everything that he needs to take precaution for, and all the PPE stuff. And this was done at in my home studio. I experimented with a whole bunch of different gels and fog, and just try to really create this crazy lab mood type of thing with this, and just a chemical reaction gone wrong or something like that. That's basically it.
I love it. And this really kind of shows, I think, in my opinion, like just your versatility in like being able to shoot beautiful wedding shots, but also allowing your kind of grunge side or dark side to like pop out. And it really does show your style. So thanks for sharing all of that. Hey, before we go, I want to first of all thank you for being here. This was incredible and a great start to this new project we have for Wedding Checklist Now. And the whole point of Wedding Checklist Now is to connect different wedding vendors to couples getting married. Is there any last tips or items people should have on their checklists? I know we've talked about questions they should ask their photographer, things to be careful of, but what else, if anything else we've missed?
I think we've kind of, hit the nail on the head with most of the stuff that we've talked about. I think my only advice, honestly, Durgy, would be to start earlier on, because as things are starting to open up, I feel personally that there is still a level of uncertainty where, people are still not too sure as to what's going on and what really might be able to come about, with something like booking venues and permitting and all that kind of thing. I would just say start off early. But most importantly, guys, at the end of the day, it's still a wedding. It's still something of a celebration, and something that you're still going to look back on. And I would say, despite of it being pandemic, you may not be able to have the big 5, 6, 7, 800 whatever wedding you wanted, but at the end of the day, it's still a celebration, and bringing the two families together as well. So enjoy it as much as you can, because it's still better than nothing. It could always be worse, right?
It could be worse.
It could be worse.
Great way to kind of end this segment. So thanks again. Is there maybe two people you can think of that in the wedding industry, wedding vendors that absolutely that I should absolutely be talking to for this project? And it can't be, the only rule is it can't be like, I don't know, some you know, it can't be it can't be DJ Tiesto or something. Maybe he does weddings or something. I don't know. It has to be somebody you can put me in touch with.
Absolutely, yeah. There's definitely two people right off the bat that I can think of that we work really closely with each other as well. First one I'm gonna say is the Foken guys. We can talk to the Foken guys and see how. I mean, at one point the performances that the Foken guys have done, was basically every weekend. A couple of years ago, and now, they're kind of starting to take a little bit of a turn and starting to rebook again. But you can definitely reach out to Rana Basi from Foken Guys.
Are you still part of that group?
I am still part of that. Yeah. So
so maybe we can do another one of these with the entire Foken Guys group, with you also being there. What do you think?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'm sure that's going to be a real musical experience for everybody, and we're looking to get back into that as well. So it's going to be fantastic. And then you can also reach out to one of my really good friends as well. He goes by the name of DJ Modi, and he's part of the Most Valuable Entertainment crew, and also a part of now Frequency Entertainment as well. He's a DJ who specializes in basically everything from top 40, Bollywood, Bhangra, hip hop, reggae, everything. And I know that just looking at his post just a couple of days ago on Instagram, it looks like he's also starting to book now again, and also starting to get back into the wedding industry as well. So
amazing, and hopefully we can link up with both of them. Before we go, where can people find you?
Yep, so you were on my website as well, themidnightmedia.com. That's with the THE, themidnightmedia.com. And then that's the same handle on Instagram and YouTube as well. You'll see a lot of like the BTS and stuff like that on YouTube. And then just Instagram is where I put up a lot of my work as well.
Amazing. Vinay, thank you so much for being here and helping kick off this brand new project, and really looking forward to actually just getting back into the industry as things open up, and hopefully working with you again real soon. So thank you, Vinay.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's always so great talking to you, man. Every time we get together, we just, I don't know, man. I always felt like from day one we had a different sort of connection, and from shooting your wedding to doing a whole bunch of projects with you, I love working with you. So I think what you're doing here is an absolutely fantastic initiative, and I am hoping to work with you again, and hopefully seeing you out there as well. And it'd be nice to cross paths, at a reception. Like, Durgy, what are you doing? Yo, show me a trick. That's it.
I appreciate it, brother, and I'm sure our paths will cross again soon at a wedding. Thank you.
Man, awesome.